He's rewriting me. Written by the Emperor's Finest. This isn't survivor's guilt. This isn't a psychosis. He's in my head, and he's real, and he's rewriting me. It started a few weeks ago. I was driving with Mark outside the town. No real reason. We just had nothing to do. We were surrounded by a treeless, overcast countryside. It was July already, and summer still hadn't come. This didn't bother Mark. He preferred to be indoors, but I was bored out of my mind. We had a nice symbiosis. I forced him to leave his house every now and then, and he discouraged me from some of my more ill-conceived stunts. When I think about it, he's probably the only reason I'm still alive, which just makes me feel that much more worse about what happened. We'd been driving for 15 minutes, and it was starting to get just as monotonous as sitting in my house. I noticed a narrow stream running next to the road. The far bank was much lower down than the nearer one, and I had an idea. Usually I would have consulted Mark. He'd probably have talked me down, and we'd have gone home and wasted time in some other way. But we'd had 6 weeks of cold and damp, and everyone we knew was in some kind of camp or resort. I steered the car off-road, towards the stream. I knew I could clear the water, and I knew I'd be able to make my way back to the road. I was just so bored. Mark realized what was happening, and started to freak out, shouting at me, calling me words I hadn't known he knew. We flew off the bank. My gut sank and I was actually excited. I don't know what he was thinking, but he grabbed onto the steering wheel and started thrashing it around. Panic, I suppose? I felt the car flip over and crash. My face sprayed with shards of glass before my head slapped into the dashboard. I remember a long period of dark, confused lapses into a sort of half-consciousness before I woke up in a hospital bed. My family was all love and relief at first, but after the initial celebrations, I started to sense a sort of dread, a horrible secret I wasn't privy to. My suspicions were confirmed when I was told Mark wasn't going to make it. I was half carried over to his bed. He was all hooked up to wires and machines. His face was a collage of pink and purple and deadly pale. Apparently, the internal bleeding was too bad, and there was some head trauma. I was there for one of his brief periods of consciousness. He stared at me with a hate I'd never seen in anyone before. This was Mark, the most timid person I knew, and he looked like he was trying to flay me by sheer willpower. He mustered up enough strength to meekly croak a few words. I am going to get you. All my life getting me involved in your bullshit. He paused a moment, as if choosing very carefully the most vitriolic thing he could possibly say. I am going to unravel you. Unravel everything you are. His eyes slowly closed, as if fighting the urge so they could bore into me for just a few moments longer. A few days later, I was standing over his coffin as it was lowered into the ground. It felt strange going, after what he had said. It was obvious he wouldn't have wanted me there, and his family seemed to give a similar impression. But I had to. He was my oldest friend. As the priest droned on, I remembered the day I met him. We were both 5. I walked into the first day of primary school. I was a little late, but everyone was just playing around anyway. I saw him in the corner. He wasn't talking to anyone, just standing there, like a deer wondering if it should run away. I went up and talked to him. I still remember the conversation.
Why are you standing by yourself? I don't know.
He said cautiously.
Well, maybe we could get some of the Legos or maybe I could punish you.
My chest jolted. That wasn't what he was supposed to say. That wasn't how that memory went. The memory kept going, even though I wasn't even trying to remember it anymore, like a film I couldn't look away from in my head.
What?
I remember myself asking.
I said maybe I should punish you for what you did to me,
said the 5-year-old Mark in a tone of barely restrained hate.
Fine. Stay on your own, you weirdo.
It was then that I remembered the day I lost my left eye. I remember as clear as anything else in my life, Mark producing a short colored pencil and shoving it into my eye socket. I remember doubling over, screaming in pain, and the classroom exploding in panic around me. I remember the way it felt, my blood gushing over my hands, and I remember Mark leaning down and hissing into my ear.
A man is the sum of his memories, and I'm going to turn you into a very interesting man.
Then I remembered all the years after that. My treatment for the eye, wearing the patch, other kids making fun of me. People at the funeral assumed I was crying for Mark and ran away because it was all too much. I ran away to get to the mirror in my car. There it was. My eye. The same as it had always been. But that was impossible. I remember my mother reminding to bring my patch just that morning. I went straight home and asked my parents if they remembered me losing my eye. They looked worried and recommended that I get some rest. I knew that these memories were new. I knew that they just developed that morning and that they were replacing something else. But I couldn't remember what that was. As far as I was concerned, I'd lived since I was 5 years old with one eye. Inexplicably, for a reason I can't understand. In this reality, I guess, I remained friends with Mark. It was like everybody acted totally realistically to me losing my eye, but it never occurred to anyone to have any ill will or fear towards Mark. And it didn't stop. It happened again and again, and the only thing that I'm sure is a constant contrast between my memories and my real life is my ongoing, unexplainable friendship with Mark. The next day, in the bath, distraught and confused, I was recalling my 10th birthday party. Mark was there. I remember we were standing by the pool. I was talking about what a great day it was. Then suddenly, his expression changed, and he began to speak with all the intonations and style of a full-grown adult.
Yeah, this sure was a fun day. It's a shame I won't be having any more of them. Because of you.
What? I said. He grabbed me with the strength he shouldn't have had and pulled me into the pool. He held me under there as the pressure built in my chest and my vision was invaded by walls of dark fuzz. He released me at the last possible second. I remember being pulled to the surface by my father, hearing his voice, distorted and distant, instruct me to calm down and take easy breaths. It was then I remembered all the years afterwards, the crippling fear of water, the sheer terror more than a cupful could fill me with. I launched myself out of the bath and began hyperventilating on the bathroom floor. I'd been washing myself outside the bath with a sponge for years. I know that all these memories are false, that they're new, but that doesn't make them any less real to me. I can only remember snippets of what I think are real memories, snippets like the car accident. Enough to know that I'm supposed to be outgoing, confident, happy, Enough to recognize that Mark's turned me into a timid, terrified person filled with horrible memories I don't deserve. Since then, Mark skinned my pets alive and hung them in my room. He's killed my grandmother only to have me talk to her on the phone 8 years later. He's burned down a house that I still live in. But the worst thing is what he threatened last time. We were 15 and camping, and he was holding a scalding kettle to my face. And I remember every detail of it. The feeling of my skin cracking and crumbling. The knowledge that my life was never going to be the same again. He leaned in and whispered to me,
"And tomorrow, my old friend, you get to learn what it's like to be an orphan."
It was then I remembered my mother crying massive, racking sobs as she stared at the third-degree burns that spread over my face, begging God to tell her why these things keep happening to her son.